Howdy. How are we doing on this fine Sunday afternoon, everyone? If you found us, I'm guessing you already know who we are, but I'm Matt. That's DJ. We're going to talk about the Sunday NHL slate and also talk about the round two series that we have in front of us here. The NHL did not do us any favors by starting round two before round one concluded. So this will have to serve as your, preview and daily preview and daily breakdown. So we'll try to cover it all, get you in and out of here before the 4 o'clock game starts. But DJ, how are you doing on Sunday? You muted yourself, DJ. Off to a hot start.
Off to a hot start. Yeah, I was muting myself because I was clicking on so many things. Let me get this into a good whatever. I can go there. No, everything's good. I mean, I kind of forgot about the potential implications of what this meant for Best Puck. I think that was someone added me and was like, "What does this mean?" I'm sure it's going to be fine, and it happened in the NBA too. I'm not sure if you noticed, but yesterday was game one of the Minnesota series I saw. And I was like, oh shit, I hope they didn't have any problems, but today's game 7 for them. So I'm sure Underdog has a fix in place, but yeah, not great at all. It's definitely going to make it really choppy. We hope to put this on the podcast stream, and some of this is going to be completely useless. So that is what it is. But as people are joining, yeah, round 2 and game 7 tonight. Interesting for sure.
Yeah, and DJ, who might be playing in game 7 tonight? Maybe there you go.
The most important players for each team, Miro Heiskanen and Shea Theodore, will be behind me.
There you
go. Very exciting. This is potentially kind of the jersey matchup too, I think, right? I mean, they'll probably go like this. So
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Kucherov's still here. I'm not sure why. I had
rip.
Yeah, rip. But we're getting into all of that. So yeah, I'm super excited for game 7. Last night was awesome, but we wanted to start kind of with a preview recap combination. And I think we're just going to go kind of in order of when the games are going to be rolling out. Is there anything you want to add before we just jump right into things? We have about 40 minutes to talk about.
Yeah, if you're here to listen about the Sunday games, we'll get to those at the end. But basically, we want to make sure that we have all of the Carolina Rangers information so that we're not saying something now and then checking back in at 3:58 or whatever. So we'll start with the Monday series. That is Florida-Boston, right? And then let's see.
There's a game today.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna
do that last.
What I said is we'll do the Sunday games last.
Okay.
And so we'll start with Florida-Boston because we know that matchup. We'll preview that. We'll do Edmonton, Vancouver. I believe that's Tuesday. And then we'll get the Sunday games.
I thought you meant we'll do. Okay, no, you're right. That makes more sense than what I was thinking you meant. Let's get into it then. I mean, number one, and honestly, a good place to start is just going over what happened last night. Yeah, it was. I mean, again, I feel like at the end of the day, I hate both teams. I made that known. I really don't have a strong on one hand, I would have loved to see Boston fans miserable and let them suffer and seemingly, once in a lifetime opportunity to watch a team have 2 consecutive round 1 3-1 series lead collapses. And on the other hand, watching the Leafs continue to spiral into chaos is going to make the offseason a lot more fun. They're probably going to move on from either or both of Marner and Tavares. I can't imagine a scenario where Sheldon Keefe continues to be behind the bench there. So with all of that being said, though, I guess the point I want to make, and I'll let you talk, is it didn't feel like we got the fair result. It felt like the better team lost. And the only thing you can say on the other side is, but how much better was Jeremy Swayman than the collective goaltending in Toronto? I get it, but I really felt like Toronto was the better team, and it just sucks to see it go down like that.
When your 2 best players, well, I mean, Willie Nylander was probably the best player, last couple of games, obviously. Yeah. But when Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi are really driving the bus for you, I don't know. It's hard to feel bad for the Leafs in general, given the way they played. I think they have much more in the tank than they showed, which, is pretty apparent based on them scoring, I think, 12 or 13 goals and, just an obnoxious, performance on their part. I think Boston just won that game through their defense. I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. They shut down, throughout the entire regular season. And so what makes this series interesting is that, Boston to me kind of profiles very similarly to Tampa, um, in that they have a very low tempo, sort of low pace. They're not really trying to push, they're not trying to push the pace at all, like a Colorado or Edmonton will, and even Florida to some extent. And they rely on a singular superstar in David Pastrnak or Nikita Kucherov and a world-class goaltender. You can argue with Vasilevsky's season, but that was their intent, and that got the job done for them with a hot power play. The Tampa, what fell apart for them was the power play. At 5-on-5, Florida did not have a distinct advantage, like maybe I think everyone thought they would. It was a pretty even series in that regard, and I do wonder how Florida sort of matches up against this Boston team, given how, I mean, one, how last year went. Like, it'll be fun. It should be a fun series, and then secondly, like, is Florida going to be this offensive juggernaut that we were sort of promised in January and February? And then it never really came together down the stretch for Florida. Like, they were a very good team, but they didn't really take off like they sort of hinted that they would, with just how strong they were in the middle part of the season. And everyone's like, "This is our cup pick. This is our cup pick." They went out, got reinforcements. People came back to health, and they didn't really take off in round one. So I'm interested to see what happens as a result of that. So how do you feel, like Boston, do they have a chance in your eyes against Florida? Because I feel like this is a pretty 50-50 series.
Yeah, I mean, again, and of course, this isn't always the best way of doing things, but I do think that in DFS, I'm going to be more reluctant on this series than maybe others. And I also just think like the sentiment around this series has gone from this could be pretty even to Boston is a shell of themselves and Florida's going to run away and hide. I definitely find this to be a bit more probably even than people would consider. I mean, again, like I really think Toronto, Boston, and Florida are in a class of themselves in that division. I never really could have picked between the bunch of them, and one playoff series isn't going to deter me. Pastrnak was not great, but honestly very unlucky. Not only was he unlucky, but it kind of felt like most of their forwards outside of Marchand were. I mean, Coyle, I don't believe had more than 2 assists. He was shooting. I mean, he seemed involved. Like I think that there's on one hand this Boston team has an identity of how they want to win, and it's not like they're going to get away from that. But if they get some luck to bounce back in their way with Coyle, with Pastrnak, and I mean, it's better to play out of McAvoy. It looked pretty bad down the game 7 there. I think they're in this series, and to go into this with the mindset of Florida's going to steamroll them is probably the wrong one. I like Florida still. Like I was very high on them, but I'm not to the moon and back as it seems like the media has already jumped on. It's like the media is like, oh, they barely survived Toronto. And it's like, yeah, they barely survived one of the best teams in the league. And I know like some stars didn't show up, but this Toronto team was very good in every facet all season long. And unfortunately, just didn't quite have it all the way through. And like everything kind of fell apart at different times. The goaltending fell apart for a couple of games. The scoring dried up when Nylander and Matthews weren't there. But that is, I mean, that is losing an unrealistic amount of production. So comparatively to anyone else, and they almost pulled through. So like, yeah, I think that most people are going to tell you that Florida's going to steamroll here. And yeah, I just don't see it that way either. I definitely think we're in for a long haul. And Jeremy Swayman's going to steal a couple games, and it could come down to a game 6, game 7 again. And honestly, what a fun series it is to get the rematch. I mean, this is still a lot of fun. Either way, I think, like, again, if it's Toronto, I'm more excited to watch and play these games in DFS. And if it's Boston, I think the narrative around this game is just awesome. This series is going to be a ton of fun.
Okay, so just to sort of like situate where we are, I'm sharing something that's in the Discord. If you're in the Winscape Pod Discord, you can go into that post and actually spend some time chewing on the details.
Oh.
Did you just take over screen sharing?
Did I take it? I didn't mean to. I was trying to make us a little bit smaller, and I guess I stole it.
I made us a little bit bigger because I had room for it.
Okay.
Okay, whatever.
I don't know why. Oh, I know why I did that. My bad. I've learned. Okay. I won't do it again. I know. Okay. I know what I did. I know what I did. Okay. I won't do it again.
Okay, whatever. So what we're looking at is the last 10 games here on sort of the left side, and that's including the regular season, of course. I could just take the last 5 or 7 or 4 games for the Rangers' sake, and I just didn't really want to do that. So it's back weighted. So like the most recent game is slightly more weighted than like the game before it, so on and so forth. But that's just sort of showing the recent play for these teams. I also, on the right side, have the games where they've played one another, obviously in the regular season. And so that's just sort of a quick, highlight of what we're looking at here. And it does show this Boston Florida series looking pretty even from a, just a pace standpoint. It looks relatively fine, which I was really surprised by. But there's something to say about shots and shot attempts versus shots on goal, because the shots on goal numbers can get nuked pretty quickly when you're missing 60% of your shots as opposed to like 50 as is normal. And then looking at the players, I mean, here's sort of where Florida does have the strength in that they have multiple lines of players that are producing, whereas Boston, outside of Brad Marchand for a couple games, basically has David Pastrnak and no one else. Florida's acting weirdly. They're using Barkov, Verhaeghe, Kachuk as a true number one line. I don't really get it. Maybe that's just a sign that Sam Bennett's returning for game 2, and so it's not a big deal. But it is strange to, move Kachuk over to the Barkov line and put Reinhart with Luosterainen and Lindell. Does that tell you anything about what they're trying to do here, or, how this series might play out?
Honestly, I kind of had the same takeaway. They said Bennett was out, but day to day, and made it definitely sound like he could be back for game 2. And I kind of took it to mean probably the same. I just don't think they have much trust at all in that bottom 6 outside of, some scoring in Erod and Tarasenko, but no defensive run really. So yeah, we're probably going to see a good mix of that top 4, including Reinhardt in it in different ways. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm just going to work on that assumption. I definitely think, again, like just getting into a betting angle, if you want to just say, well, if that works in game 1 and maybe Bennett's not 100% in game 2 and they don't want to just immediately go back to the normal top 6, definitely gives Verhaeghe even a bigger boost coming off of a series tie. Me and Matt tied with the Chuck and Verhaeghe in points, as we both bet them to win. And I honestly felt like bad about it. Like I was like, I kind of wish you won your like 12-1 because you deserved it. And then I didn't.
It was 22-1. It was ridiculous, or maybe 17-1. It was something ridiculous. It was not. It was like double the Kachuk odds.
So and with all that being said, like you could take a peek at a 7-1 for Hagee for goals. I think I just do that over the points personally. He's 7-1 in points as well. I just think it's more likely that he could luck into more goals and less maybe assists and not kind of lose that run. So, or lose that, same odds. I just like the goals more. So I think that's the angle there.
If Lindell or if Bennett misses the entire series, Lindell at 90-1 is not the craziest thing in the world. If you're saying multiple empty net points are in there, if he's playing with Sam Reinhart, you could see Reinhart going on a bender. It makes Reinhart plus 500. Like I think that's a little bit too high, but weirder things have happened, I think, than a number 2 center on a team that's favored to win the series, having the most points in said series. So that's like the long shot that I would sort of be somewhat interested in. But I'm not really expecting Sam Bennett to miss the entire series either. So that's pretty fraught in my opinion. Anything else that you wanted to talk about here?
I don't have a lot of interest in any piece on Boston. Like, I just don't really know like how someone's going to beat Pastrnak for goals, or maybe there's a point bet in there, but I just don't know if there's anything that's going to, even if they win this series, like if it's not Pastrnak, again, these markets are already absolutely nuked. I mean, Matt kind of ran some math on it before we even started. They're terrible markets. They're fine for your, like, and that's why I use my bonus bets, because it's like, they're fine for a bonus bet. I mean, and Matt can describe the math if he wants, or you could look it up. It's really not that big of a deal on a bonus bet. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. Nothing really. Just sorry to our Toronto Maple Leafs fans and listeners. I actually was rooting for you. I can't believe I'm going to admit it, but I was. And that's why it would cost me in the long run. So,
yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. So basically, it looks like these player when you're looking at the board of the player points or whatever, it looks like there's about a 21 to 22% hold on those markets, which is very high. Normally the VIG's like 10%. So it's tough. You mentioned free bets. If you have like free bets, bonus bets, whatever you want to call them, the more plus money the neutral equity bet, the better. Just because you're not getting your stake back when you place a free bet. That's all that is. You can Google it if you are unclear, but just don't use your free bets on like minus 200s or minus 110s. Like it's just not worth it. When you can get long shots, obviously you're less likely to hit. But just EV wise, you're far more likely over the long run to make money off of free bets by, actually producing higher odds when you're betting. Anyway, let's keep it going because we want to get back to the game in hand. Vancouver, Edmonton later on. This is a Tuesday start. I'm not sure why the score isn't updated. But yes, Vancouver pulled it off against Nashville. Edmonton pretty much cakewalked through the Kings. I was really surprised with how Nashville played their series against Vancouver. I think game one will be very telling. It is so far as how meaningful that Nashville performance was, because they were dog shit. Like they weren't even trying to score. And maybe that's just because they couldn't. But like they were against a backup goalie, it was just everything was in their favor and they just simply couldn't even generate anything. It's not like they got goalied. They just were completely shut down. And so that is mildly interesting because I was pretty high on Nashville coming into the playoffs and still thought Vancouver, was likely to win, blah, blah, blah. I think that was the one series I got right. I'm not sure. Or maybe I got two series right as far as my exact number of games or whatever. But Nashville beat up on some really good teams down the stretch. They were incredibly hot after the U2 thing. We know how that goes. And it just all went away. And so can Vancouver replicate that against this, McDavid-Draisaitl duo? I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see though. And if the regular season was any indication, the answer is possibly. And now that was, before the new coach and whatever else for most of those games. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and I think one that I'll feel much more confident in assessing after game one. Because if we see like a low tempo game in game one, it's like, like this Edmonton team, I'm not sure if they're constructed to play that sort of series.
I largely agree with everything you're saying, and then once again we have another, and I'm a noted Oilers guy now. I put the money on him. I stood up when no one else would. And then I realized everyone was going to stand up for the Oilers before the playoffs started. I'm pretty sure every single person was like, the Oilers are my pick to win the cup. Will I say it was all due to me? Yes, very likely was. This is, I'm trying to pull it up, and Jesus, I'm struggling to find it. Yeah, minus 260 on the Oilers to win this series, plus 220 on the Canucks. So much more than any other series. It's minus 160 for the Hurricanes, minus 180 for the Panthers. Again, a little bit more than I would like for the Panthers, like I'm saying. And again, you're adding to it. I think people didn't give the Nashville Predators enough credit for being a good team. And really, in my opinion, and I think we kind of talked about this off air, it's like Burnett was the reason I liked them and then became probably the biggest deterrent for their success in the playoffs and just really shot this team in the foot over and over again, limiting their chances and limiting the opportunity for players that can produce offense to play. I don't really know what Nashville did, but Vancouver showed up and got the job done. And I don't think they're world beaters, but I think that still pretty impressive to throw a team off that I do have a lot more respect for than maybe others. Those odds, like I'm saying, minus 260 to win the series, kind of crazy. I like the Oilers a lot. I'm not betting against them, but more so than probably anything, it's like, what are the Oilers going to, what is Vancouver going to try to do to stop Edmonton? And I think that's kind of led me to that bet that I posted earlier. And really just the way Draisaitl's playing in the playoffs as well, as like, I don't think they have enough quality defensive depth to keep up with two top lines. And I really feel like with the way Leon's playing, he could feast. So I'm kind of betting on him right now to be sort of a catalyst. And I might even look at some, Leon Bouchard and Kane, going forward as a stack in DFS that I frankly think people will not be super in on. And this series, as you're kind of showing, and I don't think it sets up to be the highest pace in the world.
Yeah.
So maybe that deters people as well.
Yeah, I think if I'm betting the series, I'm waiting till game 3, honestly, because if you're betting on the Oilers and they're up 2-0, like, yeah, you miss out on minus 260, whatever. But if they split those first 2 games, I'm gonna guess you'll get a better line than right now
Yeah.
on the Oilers. I'm sure there'll be some media cause frenzy if they're splitting 1-1, so on and so forth. It just feels like you're pricing the Oilers at their absolute peak, beating up on a team that we knew they were going to beat up on. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if anyone in the world said, "Oh, the LA Kings are actually far better." Like, it's just like they're the little brother to the Oilers.
Yeah.
Like, they can't beat them. They're not set up to do so. And yeah, we saw how that played out.
Mhm.
I think the markets here are far more interesting as far as the shots and the goals and the points. It's just weird. I mean,
Yeah.
just starting things off on the shots market. Hyman plus 600 most shots in the series on DraftKings. Like, that's a pretty high number to begin with. But we go on the Vancouver side, Connor Garland is plus 900, Pedersen 950, Quinn Hughes 950, Besser and JT Miller are 11 to 1.
Yeah.
What? And the same thing goes for goals and points. Like, it just doesn't
I
make
don't get
sense.
it. I mean, again, like gun to head, I feel like everything in me wants to say just trust the math right now and like say how good JT Miller is and the way he will fire the puck from anywhere more so. But like then again, if Vancouver is going to be competitive and one of these guys is actually going to outproduce the 4 pillars, I'm even throwing Bouchard in there in Edmonton. I feel like it has to be Brock Besser that they're finding ways to create offense around to have him actually be able to shoot because they're not winning this series because JT Miller is scoring. So, like, for goals, not even a question in my mind. If you're betting goals, it's Brock Besser. He's the best odds on the board. I don't really think it's even all that close. I don't love him to beat all these Oilers, but if you're going to go with anything on Vancouver, that just seems to me to be the best for goals. And then on shots, I could be swayed. But again, like, they have to produce opportunities for Brock Besser to shoot the puck. They have to. Or they're going to have no chance because JT Miller is not a 50 goal scorer. And I think Brock Besser actually has that upside. And they have to find a way to get in the puck.
And even longer odds. I mean, Elias Lindholm's going to get all the minutes he can handle. He seems to be on the power play one still.
He looks great.
He's 80 to 1 for most goals. I mean, I get it. Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, they eat up the majority of this market themselves. But man, 80 to 1 is pretty crazy. If if Vancouver can pull this off in 5 games or 6 games, I can't imagine a better way to bet that than to say Elias Lindholm is driving the bus. Like,
Dakota Josh was 45 to 1 and Lindholm's 80 to 1. I mean, the market is just not serious in any capacity. There's just no but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like if you're right on Vancouver, what does it look like? I just think that looks like Brock Besser has the series of a lifetime. And again, it's not to say JT Miller doesn't. Like JT Miller's obviously a part of that.
Yeah. JT Miller 12 to 1 for points is also really good too.
Right. The other way to do it.
Yeah. So
bet both of them. You can't pair them. You can't pair any of these together. But if you want to bet both of those and say like, I get the nut rollout on $50, like that's gonna pay very, very handsomely. But again, most shots, I'm going Draisaitl. He's on another level right now, and that's the guy they want shooting on the power play clearly. And he'll shoot from the worst angle in the world, which they're not going to cover. Yeah. And then at 5-on-5 with Kane and Nugent Hopkins, right? Am I losing my mind?
Correct. Henrique and Hyman are on the top line. So yeah,
on the top. You're right. I just my work. Yeah, it's like that. That just sets up again. Like that line's good. It's
the other thing, and the other thing we saw in Nashville toward the end was they sort of tricked us with the lotto line stuff. But we saw them using Pedersen with Miller and Besser more often. Now Suter scoring the series decider with a minute and a half left. He probably has earned himself a little bit more time on ice than he had, say, at the beginning of the series. But Pedersen, Besser, Miller seem to be pretty well correlated. They might even get 5-on-5 shifts. And it makes sense, particularly against this Oilers team where they have 2 top lines and it's, the third line you're not really that worried about. So if you want to say Lindholm, Garland, Joshua, you go off after one line and then the lotto line goes after the other. I think there's crazier things that have happened. So even if they don't start that way, I think playing those sort of correlated trios in DFS makes sense to me when we get there. But I think that's it for me from my end on these two series. Do you want to talk a bit about maybe let's do the early game first, and then talk a bit about the night game if you're ready
Yeah.
for Sunday talk.
Yeah, let's do. I mean, we'll start by just saying that while I was never on the Capitals bandwagon, I was hopeful that they would be able to put up a bit more of a fight against the Rangers. Unfortunately, when the only possible outcome of them getting there in Washington was Ovechkin going in God mode, and he was clearly did not, they just did not have the scoring to keep up with the Rangers team that just, frankly, no matter what numbers you look at, they find a way year in and year out to produce goals at a higher clip than other teams with the same kind of volume do. They just have those types of guys that can move the puck in Fox and Panarin and Zibanejad, Kreider, that set up opportunities that are tough to stop. And you either needed Lindgren and Ovi to carry you. Unfortunately, neither happened. I don't think there's a ton to glean other than maybe people will come in higher on the Rangers than they should. Anything on that series that you want to mention?
Yeah, the Rangers were decidedly not impressive against the Caps. They swept them,
Yep.
yes, but that was mostly because Charlie Lindgren just wasn't very good.
Yep.
The Capitals were not good unless Charlie Lindgren was good, so that's not a huge surprise that they got swept. But it's not like they were dominant at 5-on-5. They had a good power play, sure. And that's the Rangers. I know they're going to be true of the power play and special teams, and they're just going to try and keep it afloat with Igor at 5-on-5. That's the Rangers. This Carolina team though is, I mean, I saw it. God, I wish I could. I mean, they don't need my credit. Whoever tweeted it is a bigger hockey name. They were like, "This Carolina team was designed in a lab to beat the Rangers," and that's just the way it feels to me. They're deep, they're fast, they manage possession super well. They're not really that. They're not exposed to like these rush chances against that. Say the Caps gave up in abundance. Like they're just so disciplined that I really don't think Carolina has a hard time dispatching of the Rangers. Um, so that's the one series where I do feel pretty strongly, oh, Carolina's going to win this. That sort of leads me down an interesting path as far as what to actually do with that information, because if they're winning, Carolina's, I mean, they're dead. Like they take games, they put the clamp on them and they throw them out and they're just dead, done, done, completely done with. Um, so I'm not sure how I want to parlay that into actually, placing wagers on this team. But I will just say Andrei Svechnikov is an interesting position. He started last series on the third line and second power play, and pretty quickly moved to the top line and top power play. So it does show that that's a little bit, it's not locked in stone. But if he starts the series off hot, I think there is some value in his odds relative to Aho and Gensel, because we know Svechnikov is every bit as good as those two players. It's just a matter of the ice time that he gets and the production that he has. In terms of streakiness, that sort of keep him from being, say, the most goals in this series or the most points. So I
Yeah.
believe that's my lean. But I'm interested in the defenseman here too. So what is your thoughts on sort of these secondary markets, either today in the game or in the series in general?
Yeah, I mean, I already put in the Zibanejad leads the series in shots at 16-1, which is largely going off of the history of Zibanejad plus the round one. He looked pretty good. I think the concern on that bet is very obvious that Carolina dominates possession, they dominate shot numbers, and while I definitely hear that, they definitely spread the wealth more than almost any other team in the league. I mean, we're talking about a team that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players with more than 5 attempts per game on average, which again, Zibanejad would have been right in the mix with. So he kind of fits in nicely in that mold where anyone could sort of seemingly win this. But his, ice time, his utilization on the power play helps him to get more bucks on net. I'm hoping that if we get just a small uptick, it could get there. Now, if you are betting on the Carolina Hurricanes for any reason, because you think, well, they're the better team and everything I just said before makes me want to go with a player on that side, I think, shot on goal for Svechnikov or Burns. Burns actually led them tied, I guess, in ice time with Slavin. And I know that was a bit driven by the defensive injuries that they had. But, we just are getting lineups right now, and I just retweeted them. And there is, I'm sure, but I'll double check it, Yep, it's Shea, D'Angelo, Orlov, Chatfield, Burns, Slavin. So still no Brett Pesci. So I don't think that's going to change much. I could be easily swayed into going with that massive long shot for Shots and Burns. I think if I'm betting on Svechnikov, I'm betting on the goals market. I just think that, again, everything you're saying is like, well, he's shooting. He's now more involved than ever, and he's sticking on that top line with one of the best distributors and Jake Gensel that distributed. I mean, I just mentioned how many guys were in that threshold of 5 attempts per game, and he's just on there at 5, right at the bottom, 5 per game. Not the Gensel we expected, not the Gensel I expected. I mean, just again, be candid, I thought he would be the guy that was shooting before I knew it was going to be Svechnikov. So there's a reason behind that, and I could go either way there.
Yeah, and I think that's right to go goals over shots, because if Svechnikov is taking 6 shots and not scoring, like he might not stick in that line one role for a long time. And maybe on the third line he can still put up 5 shots a game or whatever and win you that. But I do think there is going to be necessary production for him to stay into the top 6, barring, a 4-0 sweep and, just the team is smashing regardless of how he does, in which case it's anyone's bet on who's going to shoot the most in the series. If this series is closer, though, I do think that you want to bet on Svechnikov to score in order to keep his spot at the table. Yeah, I like that.
12-1, and then for points, it's 18-1. I mean, I still just think, like, again, I mean, he could in theory do both, but like, I don't really see him as a. But yeah, I mean, 25 on Svechnikov pays 325. I'm going to bet the Verhaeghe and Svechnikov right now.
Yep.
Most goals in the series.
Yeah, the other one that I've just been, I touted this in the Discord for the first series, but into the player specials, you look at the series props. Artemi Panarin to have 5+ shots in every game is 40-1. That feels very doable, especially if you're like me and you say Carolina's winning this, maybe they're sweeping, maybe it's 5 games. Panarin's going to see 21, 22 minutes of ice time a night. You can see here he's their main catalyst shooting. Zibanejad, maybe he had more shots, whatever. But it's been Panarin driving the bus all season long. And so I think 5+ is obviously a huge number to get. But when you're getting 40-1 odds on something, I just don't think that's I just don't think that's a reasonable number to put on it. Sort of the same way that Elias Lindholm, it's not likely he's going to lead the series in scoring. It's not likely that Panarin's going to have, 6 shots a night on average. But I think it's in the range of outcomes, and to have such a high number on it, I think would be silly to not at least have a small wager on it. So that's another one I feel pretty good about, given the way I see this series unplaying. Defensively, I do. Adam has a couple good points in here. I wanted to mention Jacob Trouba block shots, and honestly Adam Fox as well, although I don't believe you can bet him on DraftKings for block shots. But Adam Fox is, as far as the DFS play is concerned, is to me the absolute, the pinnacle of what we're looking for as far as a 2-game slate is concerned, because I don't think there's any game script in where Adam Fox completely disappoints you. So he's been shooting, he's been blocking a bunch of shots. Those are both new things for Adam Fox. Adam Fox has always been a point merchant. He's been getting a bunch of points. And so defensively, getting a lot of points means you're going to be among the upper class of fantasy producers. But now he's ascended into the elite tier of fantasy producers because of his block shots and shot on goal tendencies that he's had for, honestly, not just the series. It's for the last several months. The last half of the season, he was really adding that element to his game. And then Jacob Trouba is just so blatantly obvious. I mean, the dude sucks and he lives there to eat pucks. Like, what else do you need? So I think this Carolina team feeds him, 4, 5, 6 blocks a night easily. I can't bet that anywhere, but like, over 2.5 minus 166 seems like a really good bet in my book.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I'm just kind of pulling up a few things and double checking. I can't find anywhere where it says the practice line for the power play for Carolina, but last time out it was Svechnikov on the top unit. Mm-hmm. I assume that will stick. Power play point for Svechnikov is plus 380, but then again, Aho's plus 300, and like I think I'd rather just stick with a guy like Aho if you're going to do it. Interesting, but they spread the wealth a lot on the power play. Probably not worth it. Yeah, that block shot on Trouba is minus 166 over 2.5, but really in this series, I don't really mind it. So yeah, might want to throw that bet in the mix. Just looking at the raw numbers on blocks, because you really can't do expected blocks. That none of that stuff would make any sense. We had 21, I believe. Yeah, 21 in 4 games against a team that didn't get a ton of volume. So yeah, he'll lay down in front of a puck if you let him, and I think I think he will. I think he probably will. So I'm done with that. I think I'm betting goal scorer tonight, Svechnikov plus 235. And what do you think, Svechnikov?
Well, let's tackle this one first because I talked about from the Kane side of things. If the Rangers, say they win in 6 or whatever, if they, if they're going to have the most points, I know you're on the Zibanejad train. Do you see a world where Artemi Panarin's not leading this team in points if they're winning? If they're winning this side of the bet? Because to me, that's what I'm really struggling with. It's how is Panarin not going to be the catalyst for points? So,
I mean,
any thoughts there?
No, I mean, even like the scenario I'm building around Zibanejad is that they just get a lot of power play run. They're probably trailing, getting power play time, blah, blah, blah. But that's because Panarin can distribute. And Panarin, while he might not be my favorite bet for goals, I definitely think he's, in the Rangers vacuum, most likely to win. Yeah, I don't think I have any interest. But that's kind of why I'm not betting that market, because it's like, I don't know if I really trust anyone else. Yeah. Carolina, I think, wins the series, so I'm just not betting it. I don't know how to describe it.
This is an interesting one. The problem I have with these types of bets, and it's not just in hockey, it's in other sports as well. When you're saying, in esports is something I think about a lot because I like esports gambling. And when you do like kills within a match, well, sometimes matches go 30 rounds or they can go 20 rounds. It's like, how do you really account for that? Because it has to do with, if you think this team's much better than the other, then it's going to be a shorter series. And so that's what I fall into here, where I think if this is a longer series, I really like this bet, but I don't think it's going to be a long series. And so, like, yeah, Svechnikov, I think he needs 6 games to get 25 shots, and maybe he doesn't. But that's the sort of thing where it's like, I get the genesis of the bet. I think if you guaranteed me 6, 7 games for Svechnikov, I would bet him as high as 30. Like, it's a really good spot. But I just think the downside for me is that I think they're more likely to finish this off in 4 or 5 games. And so that's why I'm not that interested in this sort of, aggregate bet. If you're saying games 1 through 4, I believe Underdog has stuff like that. That's where I'd be more likely to want to buy the over on whatever they're listing for Svechnikov. But it's not a bad thought, especially if you think this is a closer series than I do. For what Brad you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I just stopped putting a few things together, looking at some stuff. Where are we at? I mean, we're kind of running out of time here. So just trying to look at everything.
Yeah. Let's we can wrap up this game, and then after 4:00 we can move over to the later stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so what would you prefer? I mean, because part of me thinking, if I do Svechnikov for a goal, if I take him for shots, do I take him for do I take Trouba block still? Do I just bet all the way through on one guy? I don't know. That's kind of been my debate all playoffs of like, how far do I go? Or do I just take the Aho Svechnikov point together and say that that's probably about the same odds? And then I'm getting plus 282 if I include the shots. It's plus 134 for the both to get a point versus Svechnikov to score it. I don't know. And this is kind of part of my struggle is like figuring out the best way to bet something is like
I would be more likely to build through the power plays in the early games of a series. Studies have shown that like games 5, 6, 7, they have like no power plays in them, regardless of what round of the playoffs you're in. So I think building in some power play correlation would be fine, like Brent Burns with Svechnikov, Aho. Like that's where my head goes. I think I think I would try to keep it simpler though. Like if you like Svechnikov, maybe just bet him over point, over shots. I can't build these out myself in Pennsylvania, so I don't really know what the odds look like there. But I wouldn't want to get too far into betting, over on Trouba blocks and over on Carolina points, because I just don't think that there's, like the series is going to happen as it plays out. I don't think score effects are going to be a huge deal as far as saying, oh, Carolina's going to outshoot them.
You didn't have to say that. It didn't matter anyways. Zaka didn't assist the last goal, but yeah, I was ready to break my computer. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, we got 11 minutes there. You know what? Honestly, though, I do kind of like the Tanev blocks plus the Trouba blocks a good bit. Tanev's what are the odds on that? Want to get to the next game? We have time to put the final bets.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, if that's what you want to do. I was just making sure there was no overlay in the lobbies here. Does not look like it for DFS. Good job, everyone. You did it.
So yeah, I mean, this final game of the night, and then that's kind of going to get into, we don't know what the final series is going to be. And, you know, and everyone's going to probably have the same take of, well, Colorado's been resting because they're hurt. Who really freaking cares? That's going to probably be the best series no matter what in DFS, and everything else. I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and a lot of potential. You know, like I think if you're ever going to go into a 2-game slate, for example, and say, I'm going to bet all the way on one game and hope for overtime and crazy fireworks, like it's probably often going to be Colorado and whoever they play for me. But tonight we have one game to decide who goes on, who goes home. It's Dallas, Vegas. Dallas is a minus 148 favorite in this one. I think they're the better team. They have been for most of the series outside of, I mean, maybe it was game 1 or 2 where they really didn't look great. I can't remember now. So I like Dallas okay here, but I'm not losing my mind. It has been interesting to me, and it's sort of just like the clearest result of this is how bad Pavelski's been, like just unnoticeable. And part of me almost wonders at this point if it's almost not on purpose a bit, not literally, like of course they want him to score if he could, but Rube Hintz being bad and not being able to lift a guy like Joe Pavelski from irrelevancy is what we're seeing here. And that's also hurting Jason Robertson, who can't do it all on his own, indicating that line is kind of being a bit put into the shadow realm of defense only. And that's kind of why I've been betting on Wyatt Johnston and co. To the much enjoyment of watching Stankoven miss open nets every night.
Yeah, so last game was a really, really tough one for the top line in Dallas. You know, Rupe, Pavelski, Robertson. I think they were combined like 25% expected goals or something. Just not great. But what we're seeing, you know, in the last handful of games, not looking at just the last game, is that the Pavelski line is doing the same thing it was in the regular season as opposed to last year. It's still, you know, performing well relative to the team around them. I know it's not necessarily as clean, but basically you're looking at like a 54% expected goals mark. The difference between this iteration and last year's iteration, though, is that their offensive numbers were so much better that, yeah, their defensive numbers have improved this year, but it's like their offense has taken such a hit that they're no longer like the star top line that really, you know, that we were promised coming into the year. And Wyatt Johnson's completely taken over this hockey team. I think it would behoove the Stars to really, you know, feed him all the minutes he can manage tonight. I just don't trust him to do that. So I don't hate Vegas here. I think that's, you know, that's where I'm going in DFS personally, barring some late changes. And it's not because I think Vegas is a better team, but I just think that the odds that, you know, I get paid off, I think it's better if Vegas wins because I think I know where that's coming from versus in Dallas. Like, yeah, it's Wyatt, and then you're just sort of hoping that anyone else steps up to the plate and does something, because it's been a pretty rough go of things for the Stars, you know, outside of Wyatt at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I've been pretty high on Miro, especially in DFS, where if you're pairing anyone, and the power play is also been a bit hard to follow. I don't really know what that's going to look like, but it hasn't been great to see Miro not go with Johnston on the power play. I don't really understand why. But they've been mixing it up. Yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah, they've been relying. I mean, that second unit's, I think, been getting about a 50-50 share. They've let off some power plays lately. Like, it does seem like the end is near for that top power play unit in Dallas. And when the top unit starts, or when the top unit doesn't start, it's still Miro going out with the second unit. So it's not a crazy correlation to, you know, flip Harley and Heiskanen, you know, as far as if you're setting an optimizer with power play units or whatever. It's not that crazy to sort of, you know, flip those for a few of your runs or whatever, just to get a little bit of natural differentiation in there because of how they've been deploying things. But yeah, you can see that why it's just completely dominant in every facet of the game. Anyone else on Dallas that you would be interested in betting on, whether it's tonight's game or like in a series for versus Colorado?
No. I mean, I
Okay.
got the Wyatt Johnson, but that would depend on the odds for sure. But like other than
Yeah.
that, like if it's, I mean, anything above maybe like 10, like if it's in that 12-1 range, like Brock Besser. But even if like, I don't know, I mean, for goals, that's the only spot I'm even thinking about really. Not even for points. Like just seems a little unnecessary.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess Kill McCarr might come at a value in the points market. We'll see when it gets posted, but I'll keep an eye out for that. Um, and then honestly, do we know if Jonathan Druin's back yet or not?
I mean, it didn't look like it in practice. Again, he
Okay,
still had not skated with either of the lines. Sorry, I'm
okay,
posting bets because we're running out of time. So just if you want to keep rambling on
happy to. So
about
yeah,
Jonathan Drouin.
if Druin doesn't play, I mean, whatever, you can't really do anything with that. But especially if they play Dallas, to me, it feels like Colorado, in my opinion, should be the Cup favorite right now. I'm honestly not sure if they are, but if they're not, I think they should be. And to me, it's Colorado, the best team remaining. I think Dallas is right there with them. And then I think Vegas is a good couple steps back behind Dallas. Now, of course, they've played a very tight series. I would not be surprised to see Vegas win this one. But I feel pretty good about Colorado's chances versus Vegas come the next round. If it's Dallas, on the other hand, I think Dallas could go in. They win their first two games. All of a sudden, Jonathan Druin's back, and what do you know? He's on the top line, top power play because you got to switch everything up when you lose a couple games. We've learned that through several years of NHL history that's just how coaches react to things. So we're not really going to make that market bettable, I think, given if he doesn't play game one, there's not even a chance that he wins that. But he's going to have some astronomical odds if he's somehow in for Tuesday, presumably's game. Maybe it's even Wednesday. Who knows? So that's just one thing I'll look out for. On the Vegas front, I think Noah Hannafin's got to be in the mix for anything. I mean, he's playing a bunch of minutes now. He scored that big goal last games, which, right or not, it does not seem like he's going to leave the top power play unit anytime soon. I was holding out hope that they would put Shea Theodore back there, and they haven't through 6 games now. So that's really my primary point of interest because I think Hurdle is interesting, but like, is Eichel really not going to outscore him, or outshoot him or out anything him now that Hurdle's on his line? I don't know. So I'm pretty ambivalent on Vegas if they advance. I think they're just kind of cannon fodder for a rested Colorado team. That I mean, we didn't
Yeah,
even talk about it. They destroyed Winnipeg. It's not like Winnipeg was trying. It's not like Winnipeg got unlucky. Like, yeah, Hellebuck was bad, but so was Winnipeg. So I just feel like Colorado's a beast come this series.
100% agree. I don't have much of any interest. I think Colorado, no matter what, I'm probably going to take, but Dallas keeps it close. We have 2 minutes and 30 seconds until the first game officially locks in the sports book. And I've come up with a bet, Matt, and I want you to tell me what you think.
Ruh-roh.
And I'm going to take out, I think, one leg, no matter what. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna go back on what I have really quickly. But I think what I'm going to do is actually go under on Kreider and Zibanejad for a point together. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
that's pretty big plus money, which I wasn't shocked at. But I'll go over on Aho and Svechnikov for a point. Should I throw in Gensel? Is the question.
I think so. They're perfectly
Okay,
correlated.
1 minute and 50 seconds. We're running out of time, but that's okay. Now, with all of that, I still have in here, which I could take out. So I have the 3, the 2. I have Svechnikov for shots and Truba for blocks.
Yeah,
Would
I think
you
that's fine.
just run it?
That's how I would run it. Yeah. For transparency, from DFS perspective on the 2 game slate, I've played Fox, Truba, and Svechnikov. So like, I'm pretty much betting on the the peripherals that you're mentioning there in terms of
Okay.
Svechnikov and Truba.
Okay. And that will be
um,
my no sweat bet, the 20 to make 480. Well, I think 460. Well, yeah. if it wins, you don't get the money back. But if it misses, which it,
Yes. It's a no sweat bet, so don't even sweat it.
I'm not sweating yet. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, again, like
T-minus an hour and a half.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna say in T-minus an hour and a half, you're gonna text me like fuming that Chico Trouba got ejected from the game or something. But
first
you
off,
won't
yes.
sweat it for now.
Second off, what's gonna happen? There's two things that are gonna happen. Number one, everything's gonna hit, and it's gonna be 2-0 Carolina, and Joseph Woll-esque last second goal. It's gonna be Kreider just stupidly throwing a puck into the net. That's number one. Number two, I do think going forward that I'm probably going to do more of this, which is something I did a couple times that actually almost worked and didn't quite get there, is like just betting against a line and betting for a line at the same time on the other side. And once we get like a better indication of what the matchups will look like, I kind of like that. I mean, any thoughts on that as we kind of get into the next round and how we're going to move forward and be better? Because frankly, I had a horrific round one. Just everything seemed to be overthinking it, adding a little too much at times, or when I took stuff away, just betting on the, I don't know. I'm not going to beat myself, obviously not, whatever. But any thoughts on how we move forward?
I remember the days of straight betting DJ, but the allure of the same game parlays proved too great for Mr. Mitchell over here. So, yeah, no,
well,
I mean,
all straight bets, baby. All of these straight.
Nice. Well done. Okay. Yeah, not to say. I mean, I'm getting my ass handed to me on a nightly basis too, so I'm not sitting here to lecture anyone. But yeah, I think I'm just going to do the exact same things I have been doing and just say that I'm the greatest and that this has all just been the unluckiest year of my life. But yeah, I mean, what can we do? No, I think there is something to the earlier games being more exciting than the later games. It's just a matter of whether exciting means fantasy productive or not, because like, yeah, power plays are cool, but they need to score in order to really pay off from a DFS perspective and from a betting perspective. So just being more mindful as the series drag on that like the power plays are just almost certainly going to be almost non-existent. I don't know. That's really all I can think of.
I think there's two things I take. The main takeaways are, number one, there were times where I was very correct on the script that I built in whatever fashion you want to look at it. And since it didn't hit, whatever didn't hit about it made me do exactly what I say never to do. And that is just say, okay, well, that one thing that didn't work, whether it be a shot on goal or a point or whatever, I just said, I'm definitely not betting that next game, whether it should have or shouldn't have hit. That was one thing that I always say not to do. And I feel like I've been very good about in the regular season saying, you know what? I know this last game. The guy had 10 attempts and 2 went on net. What are you going to do? And then going back to it, because now the sportsbook lower the odds, even though it should have hit. So again, something like this tonight, what I'm looking at is I think that Zibanejad will be used on the power play quite a bit. But at 5-on-5, that line was never good all season. Zibanejad notoriously had a very few amount of 5-on-5 points, and now they're in the worst 5-on-5 matchup you could have. So unless the power play is clicking, which again, they'll get their chances, I think Zibanejad could just end up having a good amount of shots and not really much production to show for it. So that's kind of what I'll be betting on. I'd like to see how they match up against the two lines, because obviously the Panarin line should see more of the harder matchups. Rangers at home, they'll try to get away from it. I think they'll kind of throw the Kreider's Zibanejad line into more of a defensive role, and they're the penalty killers. So like they're going to lose some, well, not the main ones. Trocheck also kills penalties. I just think that yeah, like that's kind of what I did with Marchand once he got, I mean, not demoted really, but put with worse players. It was like, okay, this guy ran hot. So then betting against those guys that shouldn't be doing as well, and betting, so I don't know, there's a lot to it, I guess. I'm kind of rambling, but
the game started and the Rangers already scored, it looks like, but
was it Mika? Oh my God, it was Mika, wasn't it?
I have no idea, but Zibanejad Kreider started off against the stall line, which
Zibanejad scored.
Oh well, that's not great news for Zibanejad in a vacuum, I suppose, but that's very funny. Okay, well,
Zibanejad scored 2 minutes in. Well,
That's very funny. 42% owned. Okay, good job, everyone. We did it. And just a Roslow assist. Okay, whatever. We don't need to keep this going though.
I
To
think
live sweat.
Fox got added too.
Okay,
That
he
is
did.
very funny. Was it the
Yeah.
first shot on goal of the game? Well, yeah, it was.
Nice.
Well, no sweat. That's why you do the no sweat. No sweat, we don't sweat. And I
That is
did
my
it so late in the game, I doubt anyone even could have tailed it because it was like 50 seconds left. So congratulations to only me. I probably shouldn't have even tweeted it. I just literally tried to put it out there because we were talking. Whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It honestly kind of helps everything else hitting because now especially golf shooting and stuff. So hopefully still not
All right.
down in my theory. I'm gonna go
Anything
back.
else you want to cover
No.
tonight, Monday, Tuesday? Nothing. Okay.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I mean, do we want to build a couple bets for the late game tonight? Just a couple. I mean, I did the Tana thing, but we never really like actually did a bet for the late game. And I
Yeah, I
have one
mean,
winning to
you
lose.
can build them. I can't really build anything. 'Cause I can't even see those markets like to see how the correlations work and whatever else. So I'm
What do
just
we have?
blindly firing if I'm talking about shit like that.
They lowered Stankoven to 360. I mean, if I bet it, yeah. I'm honestly thinking about just doing the Johnston Stankoven points together, just not even thinking about anything else. And then Michael Shots, I think, was the other one.
Yeah.
And then Tanev blocks. And that's it.
Carolina just scored 2. Jesus Christ.
Who was it?
I have Slavin, it looks like. Okay. So as far as tonight's concerned, I would guess is McNabb offered for blocks because I mean that dude's he's been a monster everywhere.
I know. I was pissed. Wait. Did they add more? They did add more. I think. Yeah,
Okay.
they did. They just added more. Yeah. Wow. I was literally.
Yeah, same as the triple
So
bet, but to me they're pretty similar. Actually, Tanev's. Oh my god, Tanev's the same number as McNabb, and you people are clicking on Tanev over McNabb.
I like
What?
them both about the same. I mean, I'm not really that particular. I mean, again, like, are you game scripting that at all? You know, in your bets, like, I'm kind of saying, like, on one hand, what if? I don't know.
Yeah,
Both.
I think aren't Heiskanen and Lindell the shutdown pairing that they'll use at the end of the game? Like basically they'll play Heiskanen and then they'll move either Tanev or Lindell up. I think that's normally Lindell. So like that's kind of a concern to me when I'm considering McNabb versus Tanev, but whatever.
I kind of think I might just do one of each. Do one where it's like the Stankoven plus Johnston points, and then one that's Eichel plus. Oh God, Eichel plus who?
Like I don't think you need to do both sides of this game together is really my point. Like you can do, like I think if you correlate McNabb and Pietrangelo for block shots or whatever, you're sort of catching on to something. I'm not sure what adding on a Johnston point or a Robertson point does for that. Just because I just feel like you're unnecessarily adding variance to something where you're trying to get correlation, you're not trying to get the nut outcome.
It was Slavin from Aho and Gensel. So
Of
not
course.
even Svechnikov, who was right there. Perfect. Oh, God. Every night, every day. A lot of time left. Okay, so wait. I don't even know anymore. I don't even know.
I was talking about the night game. I don't know if you were.
I'm trying to. I'm just losing my fucking mind.
Okay, then let's just end the show because I'm not really interested in sitting here for another 20 minutes.
I'll post a couple bets that are gonna fucking lose. Who fucking cares? Okay.
I don't understand how you can be tilting this already when 2 goals have been scored in 6 minutes in a game that's a 5.5 total, and you bet overs on everything. But whatever.
I just want Svechnikov to have a point. That's all. And I'm just like, I'm starting to feel it.
Okay, I don't know how this makes it any less likely for that to happen, but whatever.
It doesn't. I'm just angry because
I want to just win all the money, and I've already not won all of it because of fucking Mika Zibanejad. It does make sense. I did win the same game parlay bullshit immediately. Like, it's kind of annoying. I mean, it's, I guess, a free bet, but I'm still just annoyed. I don't know. It's been a tough playoff. Let's sign off, and I'll post some bets. I'll think about this. I have even looked at Puck Lucky after the late game once and run through the numbers really all that much. Okay.
Well,
sign us off.
Thank you to everyone who tuned in for that. Sorry, the last few minutes were a bit of a drag, but hopefully you got some good information. Hopefully you feel better prepared for the upcoming beginnings of the round 2 series. Make sure you join the Discord if you're the sort of person that was interested in this I guess live stream, this video, whatever, this podcast. Make sure you get in the Morningscape Pod Discord. I'm on Twitter at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. You can DM one of us. We'll get you the link. We'll get you set up in that Discord. But I posted a few more thoughts in there. I think I touched on everything I did on the show, but I posted some thoughts on the round 2 matchups, as well as all the visuals that I was sharing throughout the process of this show. So with all that said, hopefully you run a bit better than DJ and I. And yeah, let's close out. So thank you all for tuning in. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a great round 2, everybody, and we will see you.